Kia ora tātou. In this video we will look at the effect of changing pressure on an equilibrium system. So this can only happen if we have an equilibrium system that has an unequal number of gaseous particles on either side, on the reactants and on the products. So in this reaction, at this stage would not, changing the pressure of this system would not affect the position of the equilibrium. However, if we had 2 mole of those B particles and 1 mole of A particles going into 1 and 1, then that means on this side of on the reactant side, we've got 3 mole of gaseous particles, because we've got 1 of A and 2 of B, and on the right hand side we've got 2 mole of gaseous particles. So what that means is that if this reaction produces more products, that means that it's going to reduce the number of particles. So if the total volume is staying the same and we're reducing the number of particles, it's like, in effect, kind of creating a bit of a vacuum. You're taking particles out of a space, so that means that you're going to be reducing the pressure of the system. If we were to move the reaction in the reverse direction, we were producing more particles, and if we were in the same volume, then that would be increasing the number of particles and therefore increasing the pressure. So if we were to impose a change on the system by increasing the pressure, for example, the Le Chatelier's principle states that the reaction will try and minimize the change that's placed on it. So if we increase the pressure, the reaction is going to respond in a way that decreases the pressure, which would mean that it moves to the right, because that would decrease the pressure. If we were to decrease the pressure on the system by providing more space for the reaction to occur in, then the reaction will move to the left to increase the pressure again, to maintain or to re-establish that equilibrium. So let's have a look at what kind of question we can get. The questions on this can be slightly varied. It might just say, there might be a question that says, what will happen if you increase the volume of the reaction taking place? So you would need to first of all state that increasing the volume will decrease the pressure. So just remembering that an increase in volume, I always do this, increased volume equals decrease in pressure. So if you get a question like that, make sure you state explicitly what that means. But I've taken this question from the 2019 exam. So the Haber process combines nitrogen from the air with hydrogen to form ammonia, which is then used to manufacture fertilizer. The equation for this process is N2 plus 3H2 goes into NH3. Write the equilibrium constant. Why don't we do that as a bit of practice? So, you can give this a go before I do, so just pause the video if you want to. So we're going to get the products divided by the reactants. So because there's 2 of those, we've got that. And then we go divided by the concentration of nitrogen times the concentration of hydrogen to the power of 3. Done. So that's a nice achieve mark for you. Using the equilibrium principles, explain why carrying out the Haber process at high pressure is an advantage to the manufacturer. So why at high pressure? If we're trying to, this is what we want to get. We're wanting to get the ammonia out of this system, because the ammonia is then used to manufacture fertilizer. So on the left hand side of the reaction, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 particles on the left, and then that goes into 2 particles on the right. So the way we would answer this question is, first of all, we would state that we know how many gas particles are on each side. So we'd say 4 mole of gas particles and 2 mole of gas particles on the right. It doesn't matter if you say it with the E or without the E. And then we would say increasing the pressure, what effect increasing the pressure will be. So because there's an increased pressure, the reaction will move to the right to minimize the change. Or in the case of pressure, you can actually say stress on the system, if that kind of makes more sense for you. So increasing the pressure will minimize, the reaction will move to the right to minimize the change or the stress placed on the system. That means that there will be more ammonia produced. Which is an advantage to the manufacturer because that's what they're trying to get. So let's have a look at what the model answer is for this question. So there are 4 moles of gas particles on the reactant side of the equation and 2 on the product side. Therefore, when there is an increase in pressure, the system will shift towards the products to minimize the stress on the equilibrium, since there are fewer gas molecules on the product side. This would increase the yield. So this is a key word as well. We can say yield of ammonia, or yield of whatever it is we're looking for, so would be an advantage to the manufacturer. So that is an example of a pressure question. Have a look on No Brain Too Small or just past exam questions to find some more if you need to practice writing these answers. Thanks for watching. In the next video we will look at temperature, and then we're done with the Le Chatelier's principle for this topic. Well done.